Now I want to break down this roster change a little because we've never really seen a move like this in Call of Duty history. And the reason why that this is happening is all because of franchising. And a lot of people are claiming this is the worst roster change of all time. Envy has no idea what they're doing, and I want to kind of talk about it a little bit and obviously kind of explain the move. So essentially, Envy has loaned Huke to Splyce, while Luminosity has loaned Gunless to Envy. Why are there loans? What does this mean? Now let's be clear. This doesn't mean these players are here forever. So this is only for a 2-month period that is only going to really kind of take place for CWL Finals and Champs. That's it. So once Champs is over, Luminosity is back to having rights over Gunless, and Envy is back to having rights over Huke. Well, why are they doing this? Why are teams making these dumb decisions to lose what is their best player? I've seen a lot of people asking, why do Envy no longer have trust in Huke? Why are they no longer deciding to invest in him anymore? However, that isn't the case. That actually is not the case at all. If anything, this is a long-term investment from Envy into Huke. Now, nobody knows the exact specifics on this move, obviously myself included. However, the reason why Envy is deciding to lose Huke for the rest of the year is because they have their mindset on franchising. Don't get me wrong. Is Champs the focus? For players, it is. For organizations, no. Champs is only just a drop in the bucket for them. Whenever franchising is on the horizon, that is where their interest now lies. It no longer lies in Champs. It doesn't even compare to what next year will possibly set you up for in terms of an investment, in terms of cash that you can possibly walk away with coming into next year. So Champs, while it is important for the players, obviously, because that is the next event that everyone really has their eyes kind of toward, for most organizations in the CWL, it's not really the case. So the reason why all these odd changes are happening is because of franchising. Why are all these organizations picking up these specific players? Why are certain players going to be cast toward the side? Because next year's buyouts are going to have to be, or rather, next year's buyouts are going to be a lot more. So large-scale organizations are going to be paying a fortune for average players next year. Your average, run-of-the-mill player that right now would be pretty easy to pick up. Next year, an organization is going to have to pick that player up, or the overall cash that comes into the scene is so much more. There's been a lot of discussions about, oh my gosh, Call of Duty's prices are inflated. And while that may be the case for the most part, coming into franchising is not going to help that case. I mean, it will eventually develop it, but only even more money is going to be coming into Call of Duty only next year, because more franchises are coming in. There's a lot more money-making opportunities. Teams then feel the pressure to want to pick up better players because they'll see a better result. More eyes are on it. You kind of get the point, right? It's like investing. It's like right now organizations are almost investing in stocks that they know are only going to rise. So let's get back to the main focus here. So Luminosity and Envy are doing one of two things in these loans. They're either allowing their players to go elsewhere to bring in some money, to bring in some cash, because I highly doubt this loan isn't bringing Envy or LG any cash. It wouldn't make any sense. And depending, maybe they want to allow their players to go to a different organization so that Splyce may buy out Huke's contract. Maybe Envy isn't interested in Huke. Let's go and give them a trial period. We'll go ahead and, or maybe even for Gunless's instance, give them a trial run, right? Give the players a chance to kind of feel out the organization, and maybe they will buy them from us. Because for people who know, Huke and Gunless's contracts are some of the most locked down in the entire CWL, upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars for a buyout. Maybe that's what their interest is to give the other organization an interest or a trial run to maybe pick them up. Or what I believe is the more likely scenario, the much more likely scenario, is that they're trying to also bring in money based off of these changes. So Splyce, like I said, is paying Envy is paying LG. So while also giving their franchise player a break. So while, like I said, while these organizations are making money from loaning players out, they're also giving their franchise player a little bit of a break. Huke clearly isn't happy with his position on Envy right now. Envy's option is, instead of making our future player, and trust me, with a very tight-knit contract, he is one of the most locked-down players in the entire CWL. They aren't wanting to make Huke angry. They realize where their future is. Envy is not dumb. Let's be honest. Like, everyone is looking at this change and saying Envy has no idea what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. Envy, of all people, surely are just going to give the guy a rest because they are clearly out of options whenever they go back to pick up Assault. That right there goes to show we don't really have a whole lot of options right now. Let's just hold on until franchising next year. Essentially, Envy is saying, Huke, we can't give you a championship winning lineup right now, so here's a chance with Splyce. Here is your vacation. Enjoy it, and we'll see you in 3 months. They want him to reset, have a break, have a good moment, and then come back home a little bit later. Have an opportunity to make a run, to maybe win a championship, to see some success, and come back, because franchising next year is going to be totally different. A lot of format changes, a lot of ways that events are no longer the main focus. The Pro League is. There's a lot of little things that are coming in the next year that are absolutely going to change up the entire atmosphere as to what is Call of Duty Esports. So now another thing people are frustrated about is that Splyce didn't give anything up when they got Huke. Publicly, no players are displayed out. How is this really working? Splyce has nothing to give. Let's be clear about this. Whenever they are pretty much getting Huke on loan, this is a loan. This is temporary. So the only way this could work out as a player-for-player transaction is if Splyce handed over a lone player themselves, which Splyce most likely didn't want to give anyone up on their main roster. They maybe offered accuracy, to which Envy most likely declined. They most likely didn't want to give, or rather take anyone in. They wanted to go back to Assault, of which they knew a player was kind of already there, who's familiar with the team, familiar with the coaching staff, etc. Envy then has only one option. Who clearly isn't happy, we'll give him a vacation and we'll just have Splyce pay us because they have nothing to give. So in this instance, Envy's saying, okay, they can't give us anything. All right, you go ahead and pay us then. And that's probably how this transition works. The reason why Splyce isn't necessarily giving anything is because they're giving cash. And that's not going to be super out and apparent in terms of how much money that is, but that has to be the case. There's no situation in my mind that Envy gives up Huke for 2 months, which isn't that long, and doesn't get anything in return outside of making Huke happy, which, they can do that anywhere. So then Envy realizes that they need a good way to close out the year. We're losing Huke. Okay, that's our star player without question, which they realize. They then look over at Luminosity, who is pretty much just paying Gunless to ride on the bench. And Envy is now most likely using the money Splyce gave them to rent out Gunless to hopefully give him a decent chance as well. So, like I said, Envy is getting the money from Splyce. They're probably using that money to then pay LG for Gunless. So it's kind of it kind of works out in some way. I'm not sure the overall turnout. Maybe they're making more money. Maybe they're making less. It just kind of depends. And Envy also decided, like I said, to go back and pick up Assault. That was most likely the players trying to salvage the rest of the year, trying to find somebody, and obviously puts them in an awkward role situation. So, scenarios. What happens after this is all over? So if you're Splyce, you come out spending money to get Huke and having a great roster for the rest of the season. Maybe they're using this as a trial run, possibly, depending on what Envy would like to do. Envy gets a rest period where they now have Gunless for 2 events, and while it does suck for the players, because it does, it's not a great situation to be in. You're getting a lasting player, you're losing your star, you're kind of in turmoil, you're picking back up Assault, so it's not necessarily the best situation for the players, but everyone's eyes, in terms of the organization, are locked on for franchising. And get a load of this. This to me is the most interesting part. When everyone says Envy came out of this horribly, they're not playing the short game. They're playing the long game. They're ready for the future. They have their eyes on franchising. So get a load of this. So let's keep this in mind. So Luminosity, depending on their team, may not be able to get Gunless back. Now, they can based on his contract, but what if he has no interest to come back to LG? Because Huke, for the moment, is just frustrated with the players. I don't think he has a real big problem with the organization itself. If you guys saw Gunless's tweet, he made it clear, as soon as I walked through the doors of the NVHQ, whenever I first walked into the organization, I felt like family. And if that is the case, and like I said, for these organizations, LG probably doesn't want to lose Gunless, Envy probably doesn't want to lose Huke, but Envy in this instance is giving Huke a break. LG might have just lost their guy. They might have just lost their guy by giving him a trial run at Envy where he might feel more at home. So Envy might be able to work out keeping Gunless for franchising next year, which they'll have to pay the buyout, but to be honest, it's probably worth it, especially for franchising where you're going to have him for as long as you want to. So they might be able to keep Gunless, and then after paying his buyout, because of course, like I said, that's going to happen, maybe he doesn't want to go back. Maybe he doesn't want to go back to LG. So then Envy has a chance to get Gunless, and then Envy also has the opportunity to get Huke at the end of the season. So, hey Huke, you want to come back to play for the boys in blue? We've now got All-Star Gunless to play alongside you. You wanted championships, here's your opportunity. You now have one of the best players in the entire world. We bought him for you, buddy. come on back. So while most people are saying that this is probably one of the worst changes in Call of Duty history, at least for the players, it's not great. Obviously, you get gunless, which is fantastic, but I know it's kind of last second. It's a matter of trying to make your way up to the Pro League, trying to be ready, be in a good situation for Miami, be in a good situation for Champs, but that's not what Envy's interest is on. That's not what any organization's interest is on. You could argue Splyce is for the the end of the season. But for every other organization, even ones who know that they're not in franchising next year, they're buying players to later sell them. They're buying players to make their buyout insane so that organizations who are going to be in franchising have to pay that amount. So for me, this is actually a great opportunity for Envy. I actually like this move a lot. While it is, like I said, short-term, not awesome, for the future, they're going to get back Huke, most likely, and they have the opportunity to make Gunless feel at home, to make him really excited to want to stay at Envy. So when LG comes calling and saying, hey, Gunless, are you interested in coming back? No, I'm kind of good here. I'm kind of happy being here. And then Envy pays the buyout because obviously Gunless wants to be there. And then you have 2 all-star players and you have a lot of room to work with because a lot of organizations, or rather a lot of players, are going to play for Envy, the brand. It obviously makes sense. They're one of the only guaranteed teams as of this moment to be guaranteed into franchising. I love this move. I really do. I know it doesn't make sense, and this change is obviously odd, but it's meant to be. This roster change wasn't meant to make sense for this season because this is meant for next season. This is meant for the future, and it's meant for franchising.